Our story takes us back thousands of years to the Valley of Elah. Imagine a vast, open plain nestled between rolling hills. The sun beats down on the dry earth and a hush falls over the land. On one side stand the Israelites, God's chosen people, led by King Saul. Their hearts are heavy with fear and uncertainty. The fate of their nation hangs in the balance. The Philistine army, a fierce and brutal enemy, has come to wage war. Their ranks are thick with seasoned warriors, their armor gleaming in the sunlight. The air crackles with tension. Every soldier knows that what happens in the coming hours will determine the destiny of their people. This is a battle for survival, a test of faith, and a moment that will be etched in history. Among the Philistine ranks, a giant of a man strides confidently. This is no ordinary soldier, this is Goliath, a warrior of immense size and strength. His armor gleams, his shield is like a door, and his spear is as thick as a weaver's beam. Goliath is a terrifying sight, a symbol of the Philistines' might. Every day, Goliath marches out before his army, challenging the Israelites to send a champion to fight him. His voice booms across the valley, mocking their God and their courage. Day after day, the Israelites cower in fear. The Valley of Elah was a sea of men and metal. On one side stood the Israelites, their numbers smaller but their spirit strong. They were shepherds and farmers, bakers and blacksmiths, called by God to defend their land. Their armor was simple, their weapons forged with faith as much as with iron. Their king, Saul, towered above them, a head taller than any man, yet even he paled in comparison to the giant who challenged them. Across the valley stood the Philistines, a fearsome sight. Their ranks were swollen with professional soldiers, veterans of countless battles. They were clad in bronze and iron, their shields painted with terrifying symbols of war. The Israelites, though outnumbered, were united by their faith in the one true God. They believed that God was on their side, that He would fight for them. Their faith gave them strength, even in the face of overwhelming odds. The Israelites and Philistines were more than just opposing armies. They represented two completely different ways of life. The Israelites, led by their faith in God, valued peace, justice, and righteousness. The Philistines, on the other hand, were a warrior culture. They valued strength, power, and dominance above all else. This clash of cultures, of faith versus brutality, was at the heart of the conflict in the Valley of Elah. Each morning, as the sun rose over the Valley of Elah, Goliath would emerge from the Philistine ranks. He was a giant among men, his height making him seem more like a mythical creature than a man. His armor gleamed in the sunlight, his every step sending tremors through the ground. In his hands he carried a massive spear, a weapon capable of impaling a man with a single thrust. He would stand at the edge of the Philistine lines and bellow out a challenge, his voice echoing across the valley like thunder. He mocked the Israelites, calling them cowards and weaklings. He dared them to send out their strongest warrior to face him in single combat. His words were met with silence from the Israelite camp. Day after day, Goliath's taunts continued, each one chipping away at the Israelites' morale. Far from the battlefield, in the quiet hills of Bethlehem, a young shepherd named David tended his flock. David was the youngest of 8 brothers, a boy with a heart full of faith and courage. He was known for his skill with a sling, able to bring down a lion or a bear with a single stone. But more than his physical strength, David was known for his unwavering faith in God. One day, while David was tending his sheep, his father Jesse called him. "David," he said, "your brothers are with King Saul and the Israelite army fighting the Philistines. I want you to go to the Valley of Elah and take them these provisions." David obeyed his father without hesitation. He gathered the provisions, slung his shepherd's bag over his shoulder, and set off on the long journey to the Valley of Elah. David arrived at the Israelite camp to find it shrouded in fear and despair. The soldiers were huddled in their tents, their faces grim, their voices hushed. The daily taunts of Goliath had taken their toll, leaving them demoralized and defeated. David found his brothers among the soldiers and inquired about their well-being. He listened in disbelief as they described Goliath's size and strength. and the fear he instilled in the hearts of the Israelite army. As David listened to his brother's stories, a fire ignited within him. David's arrival, his youthful enthusiasm and unwavering faith was like a breath of fresh air in the stagnant atmosphere of the Israelite camp. David's words reached the ears of King Saul, who summoned the young shepherd into his presence. Saul, weary from the burden of leadership and the constant threat of Goliath, listened with a mix of skepticism and hope as David declared, "Let no one lose heart on account of this Philistine. Your servant will go and fight him." Saul, like David's brothers, doubted the young shepherd's ability to defeat the giant. "You are just a boy," Saul protested, "and this man has been a warrior from his youth." David, however, would not be deterred. He recounted how he had killed lions and bears while protecting his sheep, assuring Saul, "The Lord who delivered me from the paw of the lion and from the paw of the bear will deliver me from the hand of this Philistine." Saul, recognizing the unwavering faith in David's eyes, finally relented, saying, "Go, and the Lord be with you." Goliath, towering over the battlefield, laughed when he saw David approaching. "Am I a dog," he roared, "that you come to me with sticks?" He cursed David by his gods and threatened to feed his flesh to the birds of the air and the beasts of the field. David, unfazed by Goliath's size or threats, stood firm. "You come to me with a sword and with a spear and with a javelin," David declared, "but I come to you in the name of the Lord of hosts, the God of the armies of Israel, whom you have defied." As Goliath charged, David reached into his shepherd's bag and selected a smooth stone. He placed it in his sling, whirling it above his head, and then released it with all his might. The stone flew straight and true, finding its mark on Goliath's forehead. The tension in the valley of Elah was palpable. The clash between David and Goliath, the shepherd boy and the giant, was about to begin. David, small and seemingly insignificant against the backdrop of the valley, stood his ground. He didn't wear the armor or carry the traditional weapons of war. His strength came from within, fueled by his faith in the God of Israel. Goliath, clad in bronze and iron, his massive frame casting a long shadow over the battlefield, charged towards David. David trusted in God's promise, knowing that the battle belonged to the Lord. Section 2. David's sling, a weapon of faith. The sling, an ancient weapon used for centuries by shepherds and hunters, became an instrument of divine intervention in David's hands. It was a symbol of his humble beginnings, his connection to the land, and his reliance on God's provision. David carefully selected a smooth stone from the brook, a stone that fit perfectly in the palm of his hand. It was a simple stone, found in abundance along the riverbed, yet in David's hands it became a symbol of faith, a testament to the belief that God can use the ordinary to achieve the extraordinary. With practiced ease, David loaded the stone into the leather pouch of his sling. He had used this weapon countless times before, protecting his flock from predators, bringing down game with precision and skill. But this time the stakes were higher, the target more formidable. As Goliath closed in, David whirled the sling above his head, gathering momentum. The stone, propelled by the force of David's faith and the strength of his arm, became a blur, a projectile aimed at the giant's only vulnerability. It was a moment of truth, a testament to the power of faith over fear, of courage over intimidation. Section 3. Goliath's fall, the giant defeated. The stone, launched from David's sling with unwavering faith and precision, found its mark. It struck Goliath in the center of his forehead, sinking deep into the giant's skull. The impact was sudden, unexpected, and decisive. Goliath, the mighty warrior who had terrorized the Israelite army for days, staggered under the blow. His eyes, filled with surprise and disbelief, rolled back in his head. The giant who had boasted of his strength, who had defied the armies of the living God, crumpled to the ground with a resounding thud. The earth seemed to tremble under his weight. The silence that followed was deafening. The two armies, the Israelites and the Philistines, watched in stunned silence as Goliath lay motionless on the battlefield. The giant who had seemed invincible, who had instilled fear in the hearts of seasoned warriors, had been defeated by a shepherd boy armed with nothing more than a sling and a stone. David, his heart pounding with adrenaline and gratitude, approached the fallen giant cautiously. He knew that the battle was over, that God had given him the victory. He drew his sword, a symbol of his role as a warrior, and cut off Goliath's head, a testament to the Philistines' defeat. Section 4. Victory's Echo. The silence that had gripped the battlefield was shattered by the roar of the Israelite army. The soldiers, inspired by David's courage and their newfound faith, surged forward, their voices echoing across the valley. The Philistines, witnessing the fall of their champion, panicked and fled. David, standing amidst the chaos of the battlefield, remained calm. He knew that the victory belonged not to him, but to the God he served. He had been merely an instrument in God's hands, a vessel through which his power had been displayed. He raised his arms in victory, his voice joining the chorus of praise to the God of Israel. The victory over Goliath was more than just a military triumph. It was a victory of faith over fear, of courage over intimidation. It was a testament to the power of God to use the weak and the ordinary to achieve extraordinary things. The story of David and Goliath would be told and retold throughout the ages, a source of inspiration and encouragement to all who face seemingly insurmountable challenges. The dust settled on the battlefield, leaving behind a scene of both victory and defeat. The Philistine army, once so confident, was in full retreat, their spirits crushed. Their fallen champion Goliath lay lifeless, a stark reminder of the power of the God of Israel. The Israelites surged across the battlefield, their voices raised in triumphant cheers. They had witnessed a miracle, a testament to the courage of a single shepherd boy. At the center stood David, the unlikely hero, the giant slayer. He was no longer just a shepherd boy, he was a national hero, a symbol of courage and faith. They hoisted him onto their shoulders, carrying him back to the camp as a conquering hero. David, however, remained humble in victory, knowing the glory belonged to God. King Saul, watching the triumphant return of David, felt a mix of emotions. He was relieved that the threat of Goliath had been vanquished, grateful for David's courage, and proud of the young shepherd who had brought victory to Israel. Yet a seed of jealousy began to take root in his heart. As the days turned into weeks and the cheers for David continued, Saul's jealousy grew. He heard the people sing songs of praise about David's victory, their voices echoing through the streets of Jerusalem. He saw the admiration in their eyes, the respect they held for the young shepherd boy who had accomplished what he, the king, had been unable to do. Saul, once the tallest among the Israelites, a symbol of strength and leadership, now felt overshadowed by the young David. The cheers of the crowd, once directed solely at him, were now shared with the shepherd boy who had become a national hero. The seed of jealousy, planted in the fertile ground of insecurity, began to twist and distort Saul's heart. The more Saul dwelled on his jealousy, the more it consumed him. He became suspicious of David, seeing him as a rival, a threat to his throne. He listened intently to the whispers of the court, the rumors of David's growing popularity, and allowed his fear and insecurity to poison his thoughts. The once heroic king, the chosen leader of Israel, was slowly becoming a prisoner of his own envy. David, oblivious to the growing darkness in Saul's heart, remained humble and faithful. He continued to serve Saul with loyalty and respect, his heart unchanged by the accolades and attention he received. He found solace in his music, composing songs of praise to God, his fingers skillfully plucking the strings of his harp. The dangers of the battlefield and the temptations of fame did not sway David from his devotion to God. He knew that his strength came not from his own abilities, but from the God who had chosen him. He remained grounded in his faith, his heart filled with gratitude for the blessings he had received. David's humility stood in stark contrast to Saul's growing pride and envy. While Saul allowed his insecurities to fester and poison his thoughts, David remained focused on serving God and his king. He did not seek power or glory for himself, but remained content in the role God had given him. David's unwavering faith and humility would be tested in the coming days. The jealousy that had taken root in Saul's heart would soon blossom into a dangerous obsession, threatening not only David's life but the very future of Israel. Yet, through it all, David would cling to his faith, trusting in God's plan, even when it seemed that all hope was lost. The story of David and Goliath echoes through the ages, a timeless tale that continues to inspire us today. True courage is not the absence of fear, but stepping forward in faith, even when faced with overwhelming odds. David, the shepherd boy who faced a giant, teaches us that with God, all things are possible. His faith was his greatest weapon, more powerful than any army. David's victory wasn't just about defeating a physical enemy, it was about overcoming fear, doubt, and insecurity. We all face giants in our lives, challenges that seem insurmountable. But David's story reminds us that God is bigger than any giant we face. He empowers the weak and gives strength to the weary. Remember David's courage, faith, and belief in God. The same God who fought alongside David is fighting alongside you today. Friends, I hope this story has encouraged you, lifted your spirits, and reminded you of the power of faith. The Bible is filled with incredible stories like this, stories that offer hope, guidance, and inspiration for our lives. If you enjoyed this video, I encourage you to give it a thumbs up and share it with your friends and family. Let's spread the message of faith, courage, and the power of God's love. And if you haven't already, please consider subscribing to our channel for more inspiring content like this. Thank you for watching, and may God bless you in all your endeavors.